How many of you like to live the 100 or more? How about living well and healthy? Let us promote well-being in older adults. The art of aging well is to live better, not just longer. There are many who are turning 60 each day. When we think of aging, what does it mean to grow older and the purpose of it? And what are the challenges growing older? And how to improve ourselves? We are happy to have Dr. Dominic Benjamin from Bangalore Baptist Hospital in our studio, who is an aging and diabetic specialist and a geriatrician. He also runs an Age Well clinic. So sleep is one of the important things to improve the memory. So when we see these days, older people, they struggle to sleep. I have seen people, not only older, the younger ones also are also
It's irony of life. I would like to have a lie-in, but I can't have a lie-in because I have to go to work. But older people can have a lie-in, but they can't have a lie-in because they get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, isn't it? It's weird. So what happens when you, as you advance in age, your sleep pattern changes. There are different types of sleeps that you have to go through. And one part of the sleep is called NERM sleep. They start becoming shorter and shorter. And also there is something culturally weird that we do. I don't know whether you know about it. They drink water before they go to bed.
Okay.
Yeah. And they get up at 12 o'clock, use the restroom, again drink water, again go to bed. Again get up at 2 o'clock, drink water, use restroom, go to bed. They think the kidney is also sleeping. Kidney doesn't sleep. Kidney is working.
I do that all the time.
Okay, so that's not good then. So then you get up. So the most important thing is this: you can't have your brain active and your sleep center active. Then you'll be sleepwalking, isn't it? You can't sleepwalk. So there's a mechanism in the brain. Once the motor system, that means once you start walking, your sleep is suppressed. Your sleep system is shut off. It's an automatic switch. Okay. Suppose you get up at, say you drink water at 10 o'clock, get up at 12 o'clock, go to use restroom, and come back. Your brain is confused. You want to sleep or you want to walk? Yeah? Then you again come back and sleep. When you're young, you're quite okay. Your buffer is quite good. You do that. But as you advance in age, it's very hard to get back to sleep. So I tell them, don't drink water after 8 o'clock. Drink as much as you want up to 6 o'clock. Use the restroom by 10 o'clock. Go to bed. Just because you get up at 2 o'clock in the night, don't go to the restroom. That's not a signal that you have to go to the restroom. Only if you have to use the restroom, go to the restroom. And roll in bed, it puts you to sleep. But a lot of them, they're used to the old ways of getting up early, going to office, They fall on that. And also a lot of them are worried. Oh, I should do this for my children. My grandchildren is going. I should cook for this, cook for that. So, and if something your brain is worried about or something weighing you down, then of course you're worried about it. You think about it and think. So that's the reason why a lot of older people don't sleep.
Okay.
And also they watch. Oh, thank you for bringing the very important topic. I tell people watch 1 o'clock news. Nothing good happens, but JVR, you watch the 1 o'clock news. But don't watch news after 6 o'clock. Okay, it's crazy. And news is never pleasant. And it's always gives you a sense of horror and disgust and saying what's happening to the world. And what we know from scientific evidence is that it takes about 3 hours for your visual image to go away.
From the brain.
So what I watch on the television after 6 o'clock, I've been very mindful. If I want to watch some horror or violence or crime, it's going to run in my mind. So no wonder I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to have dreams and talk about it. So I tell them that keep your evenings very pleasant. Don't talk anything that is sensitive. And don't have coffee or tea after 6 p.m. Okay, because that sort of keep your brain active. And also make sure that there's a not too much of light in the night because we secrete a hormone called melatonin.
Okay.
So that's only secreted when the ambience comes down, the light comes down. Okay. So then, you can listen to some soft music and keep yourself relaxed and read something pleasant, and then go to bed and you'll have a good restful sleep.
I think this is important information to the younger ones also, because they keep looking at phones and that light falls directly on their eyes, and that hormone which you said might stop getting secreted.
Other thing is about the mobile and the phones. For me, mobile is an external hard drive. You can take it out. For a lot of younger people, it's part of the system, so you can't take it out. And I don't know whether you know the surveys, more than 90% of the younger people sleep with the phone underneath the pillow.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because they have to immediately reply to the WhatsApp in the night and things like that. But I'm sorry, that's causing a lot of trouble among younger children. No wonder they're very snappy and agitated, cynical, and they're not able to concentrate, and they feel,
True.
not fresh in the morning. Yeah, so I think, but dementia is a huge problem, and it costs a lot. Why does it cost a lot? If, say, your loved one gets dementia, you have to have a carer.
True.
Okay, and if somebody does dementia very early, just imagine they're going to live for 20 years. They can't even do potty, they can't go to eat themselves, they can't feed themselves, they're shabby, they fall. So you need 24 hours carer for the next 20 years. So it's going to cost a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Lot of strain, and also caregiver burnout is huge. So that's why spouses who have dementia spouse, they really burn out. And many times we don't even think about the caregivers. We are so worried about. So that's why dementia is such a horrible disease. So I think we need to keep your mind, body and spirit alive and healthy.
Yeah.
So I think, and also dementia costs a lot. In a Western country, to look after patient dementia, it takes a lot of money. And also dementia patients are very prone for infections, especially they choke when they eat. Most of them die because of that. Most of them fall and they lose weight.
Yes.
So it's a lot of expense with patient dementia. So I think prevention is the most important thing.
So what are the psychological issues with aging, doctor?
There's a lot of psychological issues. The top 3 is anxiety, depression, loneliness. That's the top 3. But they go through a lot of older people carry a lot of baggage with them, and there are a lot of prejudice. There's also a lot of separation anxiety, and also there's a sense of loss of that I'm not wanted, and they feel that they've been cheated because they're not looked after well. And also there's a lot of guilt. That they didn't look after the children or spouse or their parents or whatever it is. So the whole lot of issues, that thing. But the 3 main things are anxiety, depression and loneliness. The 3 musketeers who go together. Yeah.
So do you think they get that thought, even though the situations and people who are taking care of them very well, just because they are entering to that age, do you think they'll have that psychological distraction that they any which ways have to tell that statements like I'm not being taken care, these kind of things?
They become a second child. They become like a child. They behave like a child, I'm afraid. I've seen people who done very well during the prime time of their life and they were youth, and suddenly you realize them, you just can't believe that they were the colonels or the major generals or the bank managers or the top executives. Suddenly they start behaving like children. Not necessarily everybody, but I think if you're well within yourself, you're very confident about yourself, you know who you are, and if you're able to articulate. A lot of children say this to me. I wish my dad could say this or my mom could say this.
Yeah.
They complain, the idli is not good, but you can tell how to make what sort of idli you like and they can do it for you. You know what I mean? So it depends on how you can put it across. A lot of them say that I have no friends, I'm lonely, but you can always say hello to your neighbor.
Yeah.
And it always starts with a hello. That's the icebreaker, isn't it? And then the possibilities are huge. And also they need to adapt. They just imagine a grandparent sends a WhatsApp message to a grandson, which you'll reply. You won't reply for the phone call. That's cool, isn't it? Oh my granddad sent a thing. So I think a lot of things they could do, but some of them are stereotyped. They sort of stuck with it. Some of them get a bit clingy because they feel that children are going away. And a lot of mums have the problem. The umbilical cord is cut when they're born. Children are born, but mental umbilical cord is not cut, I'm afraid. Yeah, it has to be cut. Only then it gets fruitful. And mother-in-law, daughter-in-law is always an interesting relationship. There we are. Yeah, I think it's. I think it's very important that they sort of grow with the time, but maintain the value. I'm not telling give up tradition, but make sure the tradition is not a hindrance for you to grow forward, hindrance for you to develop. Hindrance for you to get better, A lot of these patients who sort of go with a very quiet question, they say, doctor, it does not make sense to me. So meaning and purpose is a very deep question, and people ask at different times in life, but they don't dwell on it, and they sort of gloss over it. But many times this question comes into sharp focus when they lose a loved one, or when they lose a friend, or when they have more time to reflect on it, or when they start thinking of the issues that they neglected or sort of set aside. So what is meaning of life? Meaning of life is a philosophical question which tries to answer, does things around me make sense? Am I here to live for a certain time and die? Am I here to live just for 70 years? Is it what the life is made for? A lot of them don't make that sort of deep questions. They don't dwell on that questions, so they brush it aside. So I think the most important thing is that you need to answer 4 questions. One is that, where did I come from? And secondly, very important, where am I going? And these questions become very sharp, and it sort of hurts them when a doctor tells them, look, you have a cancer and you don't have much time to live. And that's where it really hits them hard. Where am I going after this? And also, what am I struggling for? How to make sense of all life? I earned so much of money. Is that what didn't give me meaning? I had so many friends, but I still feel lonely. And also, what tells me what is right, what is wrong? How do I make decisions? So these are very deep questions a lot of people struggle with. And I found people who are very spiritual, not religious, people who are very spiritual, tend to do well with these questions, especially when they are told that they have a finite time to live in this world. That's a very difficult question, difficult thing to bear with it, because you're not prepared for it. And a lot of them really struggle with it. But I think it sort of helps them when we start talking about it. They open up, they talk to the spouse, they sort of look inward and get to make meaning. So I feel that people who have a right relationship with the transcendence tend to do well with these questions. And many times it's a family that sort of rallies around them and makes them sort of, gives them that answer, or tells them, signposts them to the right place where they can ask the answer and ask the question and get a right answer. So I had this 8-year-old lady who said that, look, I have everything in life, so why can't I die with assisted dying? Tell me what's wrong. It doesn't make sense to me for me living. My children are settled. There's no need. I need to live. But I think that's not something for us to decide. It's a maker who decides when you're going to meet him. I think these are deep questions. But one thing is that you need to start living as if your body is going to live forever. What do I mean by that? Make sure what you feed. Don't feed garbage. The garbage will come out. Feed healthy food, healthy lifestyle, okay, and healthy day-to-day activities. And feed to your mind good thoughts. Keep things in good realm. Sort out relationships, okay, and also don't carry too much of baggage. Half my patients will go back home if they can do 2 things. One, if they can forgive and accept their lifestyle and the life what they are. I think the most important thing in life is relationship. My relationship with my maker, my relationship with my spouse, my relationship with my children, my relationship with my friends, my colleagues, my society. That's what defines who I am. So I think we need to work on what is called as eulogy virtues. The virtues, do I work on the friendships that are dear to me? Do I cherish my friendship that exists now? Do I foster new relationship? How is my relationship with my spouse, with my friend? Is it deep relationship or the superficial relationship? Am I a reflective person? As Socrates said, unexamined life is not worth living. If I don't go back home and say, Dominic, you did well this way, there are certain things that you didn't do well, then I'm not getting better. It's the same Dominic getting up tomorrow morning. So you need to ask that self-reflective questions. How can I get better? So I think it's very important that if you do this, then you cherish the relationship and always try to deepen your relationship, and also try to prune your character, get better, and ask the honest question to yourself, is it what I am? And many times people don't know who they are, and many times if I tell the older person, give me a pitch about who you are, they can't tell who you are. They say, my mother used to say that I am so and so, my wife says I'm so and so, my children say I'm so and so, but who are you? I really don't know, doctor. But I think you need to know who you are, okay? Because in a very clear way, only then you can have a clear identification of who you are and a purpose in life. So I think it's a process. This something unfolds over a period of time. If you're spiritual, if you're walking close to God and drawing strength from Him, He will reveal your purpose in life as they go by. But I always tell this, you need to be rest assured that I don't know what this day holds for me, but I know who's holding it. And it is that assurance that gives me a strong sense of belief that whatever happens to me will be only for the good of me. And when you look at your tapestry of life, you don't know why this dots join up. When you look back and see that that dots which didn't make sense to you makes a wonderful picture, because the God was there and there was a transcendence in all this process. So I would encourage people to become more right with God, right with the fellow men, and right in the relationship, and also have a forgiving spirit. I think that is the most important thing to develop and prune your relationship. Thank you.